Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations Around the Fire on Spirit Reflections. My name is Fred Gouveia. This is episode 93. And Spirit Reflections, for those that are here for the first time, is an ongoing series of bilingual conversations in both English and Portuguese about people's personal and spiritual journeys, the tools that they found along the way, and how these tools have shaped who they are and the work that they do today. We interview artists, philosophers, scientists, and religious people of all traditions about what was it in their personal journeys that clicked and the insights that they found and where they are today in their journey. If this is your first time here with us, we invite you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, to visit our website, spiritreflections.org, and sign up to our mailing list so that you can be notified of closed events and workshops that we're going to be hosting throughout the summer. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we're also on Spotify in the form of audio podcasts. So if you'd like to suggest a topic or a guest for the show, please email us at info@spiritreflections.org. And today we're going to be talking about family constellations. I'm going to introduce to you to my guest, Geerte Vink. So, Geerte was born in the Netherlands, and she has lived in South Africa and Indonesia. During her years abroad, she studied computer science, and then she returned to the Netherlands in 1994. She has 2 children, and she has been working as a freelance coach since 2003. Her focus is on helping organizations and teams that are in transitions to become agile using the family, systemic, and organizational constellations methods, among other tools. And I recently had a chance to chat with Geerte, and she has an incredible life experience and journey, a personal journey that she's going to share with us now. So we invite you that if you're watching us live, give us your questions, your comments. What do you think about family constellations? Or even if you're watching this already recorded, have you ever done a session on family constellations? What was your impressions? What are your thoughts about it? What are the myths around it? So ask your questions in the comments. Let's discuss. And without further ado, let's welcome Geerte to our Conversations Around the Fire. Welcome, Geerte. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. And happy to be here.
Wonderful. Happy to have you. Where are you speaking from in the world today?
I'm in Amsterdam, where I live.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So it's already nighttime there, right?
Yeah, it's about a little past 10 o'clock at night. So
beautiful. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Well, tell us first, Geerte, before we get into constellations per se, give us a little sense of your personal and spiritual journey that got you where you are today.
Yeah, so I come from a very brainy family. My father was a professor at the university, and so very brainy. And also I think that was a survival mechanism that my parents had because of their war experience. I started out as very cognitive, but during my life in Indonesia, I started to become more interested in different ways of looking at the world and also connecting with my body more.
So at what point did you leave the Netherlands to go to Indonesia?
I left in 1987. I was in my 30s, young family, small kids, a girl and a boy, and they were about 1.5 and 4.5 at the time. And I thought it was a great experience. I felt coming home there.
In Indonesia?
In Indonesia, and it turned out, I found out much later, even after I lived in South Africa, that a lot of my family have lived in the colonies at the time when the Netherlands was, colonizer. Yeah, exactly. So,
Geerte, take us back a little bit. You made a comment about your family being very brainy, and you think this was a mechanism for them to cope from the war. Is that something you can share a little more about? I was curious.
Yeah, so both my parents were in the resistance during the war.
Okay.
And they never talked about it. Their generation had the survival mechanism, and also to protect us children. We don't talk about this. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. So
Interesting.
now we come to the insight that if you don't talk about it and push it away, it keeps asking for attention. But
Right.
in their idea, it was to protect us. So feelings were difficult. So we don't go to feelings, we go to cognitive
Rational.
things,
So
ration. Yeah,
easier to express thoughts than emotions.
yes. So my father was even a member of a church that puts rationale at the front of everything. So you reason about religion, which I always found very weird.
Okay. And what I'm curious, what took you as a young family from the Netherlands all the way to Indonesia in 1987?
Well, I've always had the desire to, and I still have, to travel around the world. And I think there is a systemic drive there as well, which I may talk about a little bit later when we talk about one of the books that I translated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my husband at the time worked for Philips. Maybe you know them from the
Yep.
lights and the electrical equipment, and he worked for Philips Telecom, and they did a big project in Indonesia. So we moved there, and I was quite happy to go there. Great, I
Did
had
you
a
move to one of
fantastic
the islands or was it to Jakarta?
to Jakarta.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
big city life.
huge city. Yeah, and a very uh, village-like Dutch community living there. So it was a bit two ways: big place, small environment in a Dutch community.
Got it.
Yeah.
And at what point in Indonesia do you decide to move to South Africa?
So the job ended, and we came back to the Netherlands for about half a year, 9 months or so. And the next job was for Philips Medical Systems, my husband's job at the time. And so in South Africa, he was selling huge imaging equipment like radiography stuff. And so that was another great opportunity to live somewhere and experience a totally different culture. And in an exciting time, we came there just after Mandela came out of prison, and we
Wow.
left. I left with the kids 2 weeks before the first general election. So
Wow,
talking
you were
about
in the
it,
middle of crazy turmoils and transformations, right? In the
yeah,
country.
I met both Mandela and the president at that time, the white president. So yeah, as the Chinese say, exciting times.
Exciting times. And Geerte, up until that point, what was your relationship to the mystical, invisible, esoteric, religious, spiritual departments of your life?
Yeah, up until Indonesia, it was I had a problem with organized religion because I didn't feel participating. Uh, Preacher telling people things from their point of view and not the connection, not the both ways
A
conversation.
discourse, an engagement of a debate, right? An exchange of ideas, perhaps?
Exactly, exactly. So in Indonesia, with all the temples of Hinduism and Buddhism, that really touched me.
Okay.
That really made me think, well, there are different ways of looking at spiritual life. And I dabbled in a lot of things, and I started meditating, and I still meditate every day. Um, and I looked at Buddhism also from the Japanese Buddhism. So there are different streamings, or how do you call it in English? Different
Denominations of Buddhism, right?
denominations. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So yeah, I'm curious. I like to find out things and feel how they feel. So that's what I still do.
Got it. Do you recall any particular visit to a temple or any particular experience in Indonesia that was more striking?
Yeah, well, we had a presence in our house.
A spirit
Uh,
presence, like an entity, like a
yes,
ghost.
and
Okay.
maybe two.
Okay.
And there were two guys that run an advertisement agency, two brothers. And the people around our house said this young family can't live there because everybody that lived there got a divorce and terrible things happened. So we need to do something about it.
Oh wow.
And the two guys from the advertisement agency were, I don't know, like spiritual healers. And they came to the house. And before we actually moved in, the night before we moved in, and I don't know what they did, but they did something. But I always still felt a presence there, and my kids also, especially my daughter.
Oh wow.
But the moment it sank in that this was really meaningful is when, as a thank you, I gave those two men something really personal. And I still remember handing over that personal gift to them to thank them for what they did for us. And that's when I thought, yeah, I have to start trusting my intuition.
Got it. And okay, that was nice. And so when we go back to the Netherlands and you go to South Africa, were you continuing to explore these types of interactions with spirituality?
Yeah, although uh, I had a very difficult relationship with my husband in over the years, but in South Africa they became more difficult and more difficult, and that's sort of uh, it's difficult to talk about. Sorry, that sort of contracted me. And after I had made the decision to take up my kids and my stuff and go back to the Netherlands and start over, that's when I really started going into exploring and finding out and, going to groups and meeting people and talking about this. And
So that must have been a big moment of crisis for you
yeah,
and
it
your
was.
children in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious, what did you use at the time to cope or
I
make sense
started,
of it?
I started writing. Just the first sentence I remember writing was, I don't have a clue what I need to write down now. And then I started writing for 2 days all the time.
Like free association journaling,
Yeah,
just letting it flow.
exactly. And then I let it rest for a day. And then I read it over again. And I saw that I'd written as if I was telling you a story. And so I changed on the computer the he into you, and the them into my parents, or mom and dad. So addressing it directly to the persons it was about, and that's when the tears started flowing.
Oh wow.
And it seems so silly because it was just a grammatical change, but it was completely different for me. Yeah,
It brought closer to home, right?
exactly. It came from inside me, inside my body, inside my soul.
And at that point, you're back in the Netherlands. You're no longer married. Give us a sense of your state of mind and what led you to discover constellations. How was that meeting? How did that meeting take place?
Yeah, as that meeting was, as always, something that the universe put in my path. And fortunately, I recognized the meaning of it for me. It was in a work environment. I had an intervision group, and somebody from the group brought in an outside person to talk about constellation work, but not
Oh,
only talk
okay.
about it, but do it with us as well.
And
Uh,
this was a work group.
this was a work group, yeah. IT project managers. I mean, how
I
far
see.
away from.
Very engineering, analytical, exact mindset, right? Not at all mystical and airy.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, it completely hit home, and I said, I want to know more about this. And well, that's when I started on this journey of discovering a lot of things about myself. This whole journey has been, I think, if you want to be a constellation facilitator, you need to allow yourself the journey most of all, to be able to allow your client's journey as well.
To facilitate other people's journeys, you need to have had facilitated your own journey to a certain extent, right?
Exactly, and it's still going on for me. So yeah, I'm
Sure.
still grateful for any moment that something drops into place. So
And
yeah, that was a very interesting experience. So I did some training in that, and during all those trainings, I found out a couple of things about myself, which might be interesting for your listeners.
mm-hmm.
Um, the first thing I discovered was that my ex-husband uh, actually was gay, and he grew up in a time frame where that was illegal in the Netherlands, and he
Wow.
came from a very Protestant religious family, so that was very, very not done. And he came from a school group, etc., where it was all macho and sports and
Toxic.
stuff. Yeah, very toxic. So his way of coping was to start drinking, and I thought before that the drinking was the thing that broke up our marriage, but I think basically it was and his not being able to express himself for who he really was.
Wow.
And once I understood that, uh, the anger that I felt about the way things had gone and the divorce and things that have happened really dissolved, because I thought, yeah, this is super sad when you're not able to express yourself for who you really are.
Absolutely.
What a
And
struggle that must have been.
Geerte, you found all of that information in a constellation session.
Yeah, not one session, more sessions. Like, it took a couple of sessions for it to really sink in. Uh, that this, at first you don't believe it. The first thing was I was in, after all this sadness and anger and stuff, uh, of coming back and the divorce, etc., I thought it's time to have some fun now. So I did a training in being a clown. And that training in being a clown is really exaggerating what is already there in life. And at one point, we did an exercise, and the trainer said I was sitting opposite a guy, and we were supposed to have a silent conversation. And she said, "You remind me of this couple that I know where the man discovered in his 60s that he was gay." So that was the first clue. And then later on, during some constellations, it was confirmed that he was gay. And it made total sense to me,
When you
looking
put the
back over
pieces
the
of the puzzle
years.
together, right?
Yeah,
And had
yeah.
you ever spoken to him about that afterwards or no?
No, because he died soon after. So,
Got it.
yeah,
Yeah, it
he
just goes
died.
to show how much of the field that is remains hidden, unspoken, repressed, suppressed by ourselves or by our ancestors. It doesn't go away. It's very present in the field, and incredibly how you through intuition was able to get that revelation and have it confirmed after more than one session, right?
Mhm.
It's one of the magical aspects of systemic and family constellations.
Yes, it brings so much out in the open that needs to come out in the open, which is healing. That's why I love this work. And I love it also because it's totally non-judgmental.
Right.
It is what it is. And
Yeah.
yeah, you don't put a label on it.
One of the books that you had recommended that I read
Yeah.
by Bert Hellinger was one that's called Movements of the Spirit. And I was
Yeah.
taken by the title. I'm curious if that's something you could talk about, this book.
Yeah, I was taken by the book as well, and by his way of working with that. And what he basically says is that you can do uh, the work in a practical sense, but you can also do and look at the work from a sense of once the the movement has started in the spirit, the process will follow. So, for instance, well, actually, this example of me finding out about my husband being gay, the first movement started in that clown session, and it opened me up for more indications and more clear pointers to, yeah, this is what was going on.
I guess the question is, how do you get the spirit to start moving?
Yeah, by
And
connecting with the system
mm-hmm,
and letting the system express what it is time for to move now.
gotcha. And one thing you had shared with me that I also really liked, that was that Bert Hellinger always used to say, if you want to help somebody, you have to let go of the need or want or the desire in the first place to help, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. You don't work for other people. You let the system work and you just provide the space for that to happen.
Yeah. And I actually make a connection to my personal experience when you see a lot of people involved in charitable work, volunteer work in society, in places with addictions and homelessness. And some of those people are very fired up by this enthusiasm and this passion to help. And many of them end up getting exhausted, drained, burned, disenchanted because it's this overwhelming need and desire from them to want to help others. But when I heard you say that, completely letting go of any want or needs for any outcomes,
Mm.
you actually become an emptier vessel for the process to unfold through you, as opposed to you getting involved and fighting it and trying to control it, right?
That's beautifully expressed. Yeah, that's exactly it. You go to an empty space and uh, let happen what needs and wants to happen. Yeah.
Definitely. And one thing that I know Constellation talks a lot about is our ancestors.
Mm.
Some people call them spirit relatives that are deceased. And you had mentioned also a book that I wanted to see if we can briefly touch on, by Ursula Franke and Thomas Bryson, and it's called Encounters with Death.
Yeah,
And it's like a case by case book, right?
exactly. So they interview each other. And I have been, uh, I don't think obsessed, but I've been interested in death from very early on. I think in primary school, I already wrote a small paper about death and dying.
Uh huh.
And also through constellation work, I figured out where that comes from.
Uh huh.
And that is that I started out as a twin, one of a twin. And but my sister was never born. I was born alone, and
Oh,
this
wow.
is in constellation work. This is called the lost twin,
The
or
Lost
the
Twin.
yeah. And so all my life, I felt like I wanted to explore death, and I also felt a deep loneliness and sadness that I couldn't put words to. Which makes sense because the grief started in a period in my life where I didn't have any words yet.
And was this an information that your parents at some point told you about, or you also discovered through constellation work?
Yeah, I discovered through constellation work, and I couldn't check with my parents anymore because by that time my father had died and my mother was in the last phase of very deep dementia. So, and maybe they didn't realize either. I mean, 1 in 10 people in the world is part of uh, twin or multiple um, babies while in the womb. And and sometimes the mother has had a bit of blood flow but doesn't realize it anymore, that one of the but also in a lot of cases the twin or the multiples get reabsorbed when they leave this world again. So a lot of people don't know this. And so but there are very clear symptoms for people who have a single birth where they started out as twins or multiples.
And what are some of those symptoms?
Yeah, so a deep sense of loneliness and sadness that you can't put words to. I've been looking for her everywhere, in friends, but they were never her. Friendships were good, but always a little bit disappointing. There was never that connection that, well, I unconsciously remember from in the womb.
Right.
And there is a beautiful description in German, because in Germany a lot of research has been done into this, and it's like a poem describing two hearts beating at the same time, where one heart gets fainter and fainter and fainter and then stops.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And still, when I say this now, I get shivers.
Yeah. It's such an integral part of the way you came into the world and how your body was formed in the womb alongside this sister. So it's such an integral part that it reverberates in every cell of your body to this day, right?
Yeah. And I feel her now again, talking about her on my right side. My right arm is getting warm, and yeah, it's
I'm
lovely.
sure she's with us. Beautiful.
It's a great support now.
Yeah,
So
one of
that's
your
when,
guardian angels.
exactly. So that's why when this book came on my path again, immediately took the chance to translate it, and the book taught me a lot, because when you translate a book, you really have to go into what are they really saying here. It was a great cooperation with the publisher,
Hmm.
Sietsbakker, and we translated it from English to Dutch, because Thomas Bryson is American. He worked in hospices and also does constellation work, and Ursula Franke is German, and they're married and they now live in Namibia.
Oh
But they
wow.
gave a lot of workshops as well. So I attended quite a few of their workshops. They're retired now and living in Namibia. But yeah, that really um, helped me increase my sense of constellation work and my role in constellation work.
And Geerte, what's the name of the book in English that you translated to Dutch?
Encounters with Death.
Okay, that's the one. Got it. Just wanted to
Yeah,
confirm. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm putting it here on the screen, and at the bottom of the video, there's going to be a link. If I find the book online in English, I'll put a link for people to access and purchase, because I'm very curious myself to read it now.
yeah. It talks about, well, in a case by case way, about how constellation work can ease the transition for some people.
From life to death, or facing
Yeah,
death, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a topic that we are all scared to talk about and face, and yet it's our only common denominator in this
yes,
world.
true. We get
So
born and we go. Yeah,
preparing for it emotionally, psychologically, mentally for it is part of our, habits every day, like brushing your teeth and
yeah,
showering, I guess. So,
yeah. One of the stories in the book is about a woman, and she lives in, I think, Hawaii. I can't remember exactly where. Uh, and the conclusion of that case is that sometimes the system needs new energy. And so the system gives one person in the system an assignment to go away, to go abroad, live outside their original place of where they were born and grew up, to find new energy for the system. And I think for me, that was one of the drives to go live outside the Netherlands as well, to
Abroad.
find that new energy. And this is not a very easy assignment. It's a hard job to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, Fred, you know about this as well.
Definitely. I was born in Brazil, and at 13 I moved to the United States, and it's a big transition, absolutely.
Yeah. And it is sort of double, because the system asks you to bring in new energy because it's stuck and it wants to, like, it's in this stuck motion and it needs like a push in another direction
Right.
for the whole system, and that's where the new energy comes in from. So
Got
it's
it.
hard, but it's also very rewarding.
Beautiful. So now we go to the present moment, what you're working on nowadays with family constellations. It's my understanding that you're applying it more towards corporations and work structures, right? Not as much as like family or individual work. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. I have some individual clients that I coach or guide, help, but I don't help them. I give the space
Right.
for them to help themselves. Uh, but I work as an agile coach because nobody in the Netherlands, and I don't know anywhere in the world, asks for a systemic coach in an organization. Uh, but the agile way of working is a work a way of working that has started in IT software development, and it's working in short cycles. You bring in every aspect of a development cycle in a process in 2 weeks, and you deliver something, and then you go another 2 weeks and you deliver something. So, and it's a very specific structure that helps you get focused, that helps teamwork. It's very focused on teamwork, very focused on the customer. Um, and so I guide, help, coach people in organizations to increase their maturity in this kind of work. But since it is teamwork, and since I am schooled in systemic work, I can't switch it off anymore. So I
Right.
also look at teams and their surroundings from a systemic point of view.
Got
An
it.
example that I can give is I worked in an organization that I felt something is stuck here. I don't know what's going on. And towards the end of my assignment of about a year, I took the time to interview the most senior people in the organization.
Mark says
And
that he's Scrum certified. Mark is one of our followers of the channel. That's good to know, Mark. Awesome. I'm going to chat with you about that later on. Curious. Sorry, go
great,
ahead.
Mark, we can use you here. Yeah, so as a Scrum Master, you also look at the dynamics of the team. So you can use the systemic view on teams very well in that way of working. So I was talking about this example of an organization that, I don't know, it felt like they were tomatoes and garlic and onions and maybe some meat, but they weren't a nice spaghetti sauce together. They
Got
just
it. They
didn't.
weren't blending together.
Exactly. So
Cool.
I started talking to the most senior people that are in systemic hierarchy, the highest after the founders, and I figured out this organization has totally lost sight, don't know who their founders are. And so I gave a presentation to the directors, and one of them picked it up, and he invited an investigative journalist to look in the history of the organization. And after I left, he rang me up and he said, I've done this and the book is out and I'm going to send it to you. And thank you so much for pointing this out to us. And a sigh has gone through the organization.
Wow. Because they had lost touch with the big, in the order of constellations, the founder is the bigger, right?
Yeah,
They're bigger. And they had
they're the
completely
ones that
lost
gave
touch.
Yes. The founders are the people that give birth to the organization. So it's like the parents of the organization. Fortunately, you see in a lot of organizations pictures or statues or reminders of the founders, and that is very good. But in some cases, there is a fight and one of the founders is kicked out. Ooh, that's something that you need to look into because they're still
Systemically,
founders. Yeah,
constellation wise, you need to address it, right?
exactly. It's a recipe for disaster.
So when you say that there is a big sigh of relief, this entanglement that was addressed was resolved. How did they perform after that? Did the spaghetti sauce finally get blended? Like, how did
Yeah,
it
they
change?
started working better together and they started performing better in their goal, their purpose of the organization. Yeah.
And did you have to have any specific rituals or ceremonies or rites of passage or any kind of meetings in order to help them decode this new information, or did it just spontaneously change?
Well, by hiring this journalist and investigating and bringing out the book and have a ceremony about, well, here's the book, and everybody in the company and their customers and everybody who was interested received the book, they readdressed the existence of this foundation.
Got it. So they were honoring them in that effort.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the right word. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I wonder if this, how this gets translated to families that have had divorced parents, or when you don't know who your father or your mother is because you're adopted or an orphan, things like that.
Mm. Yeah. So anybody that is has gone missing from the system and is not honored will ask for attention, and somebody in the system will bring them back into view by behavior that is maybe strange to the rest of the family, by asking for a lot of attention or the opposite, retreating. So there are always symptoms when, like my sister that was missing that nobody never knew about. That gave me symptoms. And sometimes two or even three generations after the fact occurred, after somebody was uh, died very young, and it was so sad we don't talk about that anymore. Uh, Somebody in two or three generations later will have symptoms and will be entangled or connected to that person that had gone missing in the system.
And so they can manifest in many number of ways, right?
Yeah. And our job as constellators is to help people figure out what it is they are entangled with.
And once they are able to see Geerte, so the information comes up from the system, the field reveals new information. How do you usually address it? How do you make the clients work through it in one session, for example? Like, take us to that moment. Let's
Yeah, so
hypothetically.
you start out by asking what they come for, what they are interested in looking at. I don't pretend and I don't want to um, fix things. I just want to bring what the patterns that are underneath the waves, underneath the surface, out in the open. And usually bringing things out in the open already brings that movement of the spirit that we were talking about
Mm.
before. And then it's a matter of having the system and the person processing that movement, letting it continue. And very often there is an incubation time or a processing time of about 2 to 3 weeks. And I check in with my clients like 2 to 3 weeks later. How are you doing now? And is there anything you want to ask or talk about? And yeah.
Got it. So the resolution, once the information comes up, sort of processes itself for a
Mm,
period of time, right?
yes. Yeah.
Got it. And is this a type of tool or a type of work that involves a constant relationship, sort of like patient therapist, or is this more like an intervention that you do a few times and you go your separate ways?
Yeah, constellation work is like peeling an onion. You peel the first layer and people process that, and maybe a while later, another layer of the onion is ready to be peeled, and maybe they go to somebody else to have that layer peeled. So you don't have a constant relationship. You're
Got
not.
it.
I don't feel myself a therapist. I'm just supporting the process that wants to happen.
Got it. Beautiful. And you had mentioned that you have been meditating for many years, ever since you were in Indonesia, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things that I thought we could do here in our conversation around the fire is to experience a moment of meditation or of guided visualization. And so I just letting people know that we're going to be doing that shortly. And if you are going to participate with us live, please share your comments and questions and impressions. And I wanted to ask you, Geerte, if there's any other comments about Scrum or constellation work or systemic work that you do today, and or you like to offer to people that we haven't talked about yet before we move to the meditation part.
Yeah, that's one thing I would like to add. I started out by saying I was very cognitive mental in that start of my life. And the older and the more experienced I got, the more I understood that anything in life is about people and connecting. And both constellation work and scrum work is about the people and about the connections. And that's why I love the combination of the two.
And how, in the world of 2022 we live in, post COVID, where people are more disconnected from each other, what would be some of your suggestions for people to improve the quality of connections with one another?
Yeah, so one of the things, and we might do that in the meditation a bit later, is as we are now, we get very much into 2D on screens in 2D, and what you can do, and this is something I got from Arwana Hayashi from the Presencing Institute, make yourself 3D again while you're in the 2D connection. And
Ah,
well, I'll guide you through the
cool.
start of the meditation, and then we might do or experiment a constellation in the imagination if you're
Wonderful.
up to
Yeah,
it.
I like that idea. So, for those that are going to be participating live, share your impressions afterwards. And if you're watching this recorded, also leave your comments below because this works anytime, right?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
this making myself 3D, I do driving my car or in a meeting or walking towards a meeting or even on the toilet.
Beautiful. Well, tell us your comments and impressions below. And I will leave you now with Gerta, who's going to guide us in this meditation. So, the floor is yours, Gerta. I will get out of it so that you're on full screen.
Thank you. So for the first part of this meditation, we keep our eyes open, which we're not used to in a meditation. You just keep your eyes open and you look around you in the room where you are. Just take a moment away from the screen and look around and hear my voice and maybe something else around you, and maybe smell a smell that's around you and taste what you've just drunk or taste or eaten. So use all your senses and take a deep breath in and out. And now close your eyes and go with your attention to the back of your body. We are very connected to our front, but we're now going to connect more to the back of our head, the back of our neck, our shoulder blades, and our spine in between. And just keep breathing as you would normally breathe. And go to the middle of your back, your lower back. Feel the connection with your body sitting on the chair, the back of your legs, the back of your knees, left and right, your calves, left and right. And maybe you feel some sensations in your body and just notice them. Don't judge them, just let them be. Some tingling maybe. And go to the bottom of your feet. And what I would propose to you now is to think of somebody that you would like to improve your relationship with. And when you think of that person, imagine where they would be in relationship to you if they were in the same room with you now. Are they far away? Are they close by? Are they to your left, to your right, in front of you? And just take a moment to visualize that person. And now find a place for yourself in relation to your person, that person, looking at them, and find out what is the perfect distance between you and them. And you can experiment by moving a little bit closer, and if that feels too close, you go a little bit backwards again, and you find a position where you are in relation to them, connected to them, but you don't take over anything from them. You can just look at them and you can be yourself in your place. And if you need to move a little bit further away, that's good. But if you go too far away, you lose the connection. So when you go too far away, you come a little bit, and sometimes that's millimeter work. Now, once you find that place where you are in connection, but not too close in connection with that other person, you look at them and you say to them, I see you with everything that you bring with you. I see you with everything that you bring with you. And maybe you can check how they are looking at you now. Are they smiling? Are they neutral? Are they wondering? And maybe a tiny movement has set in. And now the next step is more difficult. Next step is allow yourself to be fully seen by that other person with everything that you bring with you. And take a moment to really allow yourself to be seen. And that can be very frightening. So if you need to take a step back and start again, that's okay. Just allow yourself to be seen by them for everything you are and everything you bring with you. And take a deep breath and look at them again. And if you want, you can do a small, your own ritual of ending this constellation by saying thank you or whatever is appropriate for you. Take a deep breath. Take a moment to feel your body again and come back into the here and the now and in the space where you are. Open your eyes, look around you again, and come back here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Geerte. That was very cool. That
You're
was,
welcome.
for me, was more than one person. That
Great.
was very cool. This
Yeah, you
spatial
can.
awareness.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah. And you can do this anytime you feel like you need to do that with somebody, or, yeah.
I'm curious, in your work, when you don't have a big group to act as volunteer representatives for somebody's issue, do you work with objects and things like that to act as representatives?
I don't work with like play mobile dolls, or I used to work with wooden representatives that I had made in Indonesia. But I work with colored felts, A4 size colored felt floor anchors,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I like to move around and I like to place myself, use myself as a representative when I work on one. And so I can stand on or near one of those representatives' floor anchors to feel what's going on in that position. And also, I can let the client feel what it is like to be in the other position.
So you make the client, you place the client in the position of the fells, or you place the client in your position, and as you move around, it is as if they are themselves moving around with
Now,
you.
what I do is I ask the client what it's about, what the elements are that need to be constellated. Um, what I sometimes do is a CV constellation, and I ask them what are, so a curriculum vitae
Oh, okay.
constellation,
Okay.
where I ask them what are important moments in your life that still need attention. And I place a floor anchor on that spot. Like I was 10 years old and this happened to me. And then I was maybe 21 years old and this happened to me. And I guide them from one place to the next.
So those are all of the markers in somebody's life that have affected or are affecting their resume, their professional careers.
Exactly.
Very cool.
So at this point, I had a boss that was really nasty to me. So I put a floor anchor there and I place them on the floor anchor and I do some healing sentences. Like, for instance, when the boss was nasty to this person, we say, I leave the full responsibility of your nastiness with you.
To right, shake it off and cleanse yourself from that, right?
Yeah, you don't take any guilt or hurt with you. The responsibility is there. So then you go to the next one. And in a family situation, you can place a floor anchor for the father and the mother, uh, and siblings maybe, and maybe an aunt or an uncle that died very young, and you place the floor anchor there. And I put myself there to see the relationship between the client and the person they're entangled with, and do some healing sentences
Got
there
it.
as well.
So then you're acting as a representative. You'll feel what the field is trying or the system's trying to reveal to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to consciously step out of that again because I don't want to get stuck in somebody else's system. Yeah.
Right.
And in an organization, I use the floor anchors to, for instance, say, okay, this is a representative for the purpose of the department. And this is a representative of management. And this is, so I can put different,
Customers and
exactly,
HR and
whatever. Yeah.
accounting.
And that one person that you always have problem to cooperate with, etc. So
Do you notice that they pick similar colors for different types of people or emotions or situations, or you don't find that pattern?
no, I don't even notice that. No,
Got it.
I forget about somebody's constellation when it's done.
Beautiful. That's how it should be, right?
Mm,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, if anybody was interested in having a one-on-one session with Geerte, type your comments or look for us in our emails, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with her. And I wanted to thank you, Geerte, once more for being here on Spirit Reflections Around the Fire, sharing some of your wisdom, your journey, and the insights you gained along the way. And here's to us untangling ourselves as much as possible from our own constellations and fields, right?
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. I enjoyed talking to you, and I hope anybody who listens will take away something that will be helpful for them.
Absolutely. Stay in the studio. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and I'll be right back with you. Take care, everybody. See you in our next episode Around the Fire. Thank you.